This is another in a series of videos on complex numbers, and in this video what we're going to do is we're going to plot complex numbers in the form a plus bi. So the first thing, let's review real quickly. A complex number is any number that can be written in the form a plus bi, where a and b are real numbers and I is defined as the square root of -1, or what's called the imaginary unit. And the first thing we need to do is need to identify what the real part and the imaginary part is. So let's take an example. Let's take an example of 7 plus 2i. So in that case, we call this the real part, and this is the imaginary part of a complex number. And the coefficient of the real part is 7, or in other words, we say that a is 7. And the coefficient of the imaginary part is 2, so we say that b is 2. Let's do another example. Let's identify the real and the imaginary part. Of each. So if you had 5 minus 4i, the real part would be 5, and the imaginary part would be -4, or -4i. So in other words, we say a is equal to 5, b is equal to -4. Another example, -7 plus 18i. We say that a is -7, that's the real part. b is equal to 18. 18 or 18i is the imaginary part. So let's plot these numbers. Now the problem is, so here's the problem would say. It would say plot 6 plus 3i. Now the problem is that this is, again, not a real number. And when we typically do an XY graph, we're plotting real numbers, right? Whereas the horizontal axis is the x-axis, and the vertical axis is the y. So we're going to change the definitions there. And the way we're going to change it is the horizontal axis is going to be, we're going to call the real axis. I often use this R here with a double post. You don't have to use that. If you want to, you can just say these are real numbers. And we're going to define this as 0. And as you go in this direction, this is positive, and in this direction, this is negative. So that's a +1, +2, +3, +4, -1, -2, -3, etc. So if this is the real, this is nothing more than the real number line that you learned when you were very young. The vertical axis we're going to call I, or the imaginary axis. And as we go in this direction, that's positive. So that's +1i, +2i, +3i, +4i. And going down would be -1i, -2i, -3, -4i. So if we're going to plot 6 plus 3i, it's pretty straightforward. We know that a is 6 and b is 3. So we're going to go 6 times 1. There's 6 units. That's on the real number line because it's a real number. It's going to be 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 3 will be the 3i, so it's imaginary, so it's 1, 2, 3. So you go here, that's 3i, so if you read across, that's going to be 6 plus 3i right there, and that's all you do. Let's do another quick example. Let's plot -2 plus 5i. The real part is -2. A is -2 and b is 5. So then a is -2, b is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to be -2 plus 5i. It's going to be right there. And let's do one more. Let's plot -4 minus 7i. A is -4. B is -7. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You see where those two intersect. And that's going to be -4 minus 7i. And that's about it. There are a few complications. They're not so much complications that it's just occasionally people get it a little bit more a little bit confused. So let's plot 7 on the complex plane. So let's draw what looks like an XY graph, but remember it's not an XY graph anymore. It's what's called a complex plane. What the complex plane is it's a plane where the horizontal axis is real numbers. Rather than spelling out real numbers, I often use this R symbol. That's fine. Either way. And this is going to be the imaginary axis. And in this case, the important thing to realize is 7 can be rewritten as 7 plus 0i. In other words, A is 7 and B is 0. So let's see, A is 7, that's the real part. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And B is 0, so that's right there. That's 7 right there. Let's do this. Let's plot minus 4i on the complex plane. The key is that minus 4i is, to write it as a plus bi will be 0 minus 4i. So in other words, a is 0 and b is minus 4. So a is 0 and b is minus 4, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's right there. So that's minus 4i right there. Let's do one more quick example. How do you plot? Let's do two more examples. Let's plot minus 3 and let's plot 2i. Minus 3, 1, 2, 3, right? 2i, 1, 2. This is 2i. That's minus 3. The key is minus 3 can be written as minus 3 plus 0i. And 2i can be written as 0 plus 2i. And that's how you plot complex numbers. The following video you should watch is finding the absolute value of complex numbers.